Daphney, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Prime Time for Women's ongoing series, Navigating Change. For those of you who are new to our program, we explore the inevitability of change, and we highlight inspiring women who have successfully navigated change in their own lives. At Prime Time for Women, we recognize that change can be difficult. We also believe that if we allow it to, it can focus and concentrate our attention and allow us to be more in tune to what's going on in our hearts and in the world around us. We like to think that prime time of life, the stage of life, no matter what your age, is when you give voice to your thoughts and put your dreams into action. It's a phase of life that is all about realizing, exploring self-discovery, freedom, and discovering those possibilities. Today's episode of Navigating Change is entitled, Fighting for the Change You Want to See. I'm sure you've heard the expression win, lose, or draw. Basically, it means that in the game of life, they are the only options. You win, you lose, or you draw. But you can't sit out life. You have to move forward. Today's guest, Daphney Smith-Jackson, understands that concept of win, lose, and draw better than most. She's living proof that if you lose and get back in the game, especially if you have support, you will win. Daphney is going to share her story of overcoming early traumas and I think what many would consider insurmountable odds to become a businesswoman, a nationally recognized female entrepreneur and founder of Women Who Uplift, a nonprofit that helps girls and women through mentoring and to realize their potential. Daphney, if it's okay with you, I thought that I had a little bit more to say about you, but then I thought to myself, I could never do justice to your spirit, your enthusiasm, your passion, better than this little clip I found of you. So I thought I'd start off with that and then we'll do the interview. Is that okay?
That's fair.
Okay, here we go. This is Daphney in her own words. Let's see if I can screen share this just right.
I'm starting up my nonprofit. It's Women Who Uplift, and kind of the basis of the nonprofit is more of a mentorship program. And so if I look back through the 43 years of my life, I've been the little girl that's been bullied. I have been the little girl that's lost because I lost my daddy. I've been the little girl that someone violated my privacy. I lost my mama. I am a teen mom, and I've been on welfare. I've been kicked out of homes. You name it, I've done it. But guess what? I don't make excuses, right? I stopped being 22 years old. I stopped making those excuses and I looked myself in the face and said, how do you become a better version of yourself? There were times where I wish that someone would have lent me a helping hand as opposed to pointing a shameful finger. So I think the space that I am in now is how do I strengthen other women and let them know of some of the challenges that I face and say, hey, look at me, I've done it, right? And so you can too. So we've got this whole Me Too movement that's out there, right? And so if I can, so can you. It's just kind of, how do you become a better version of yourself? And so now my calling in life leads into the nonprofit. I'm going to go back and I'm going to give to every single one of those women in that space. And even the space that I'm in now, being a business owner is not easy. It's not easy at all. I'm back to being alone sometimes because some people just don't understand. People look and they say, hey, you grew this thing in 4.5 years so quickly. You weren't there year 2 when I didn't know. Shoot, I had maybe 6 or 7 employees. There were days where I didn't know how I was paying them or how I was paying me, right? So I'm like, we'll pay them, worry about you later. There's a trial and a tribulation throughout all of it. And so learning to kind of look yourself in the mirror, not being afraid to ask for tools and resources to get you to a better version of yourself. So I'm really excited about that and just kind of doing some of the heavy lifting there. It's almost like starting a whole new other business, actually.
Okay, Daphney, I couldn't have ever put all that into words. That is so inspiring. And I just wanted to say how glad I was that I came upon that, was able to share that today.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird listening to yourself back, you know. So. A little teary-eyed.
Well, I was wondering how that would feel to you. I really, I think that it's pretty powerful stuff. But Daphney, I thought if it was okay with you, what I wanted to do was start off this interview asking you, what are 3 words you would use to describe yourself right now?
Right now, in this moment, so I would say
Easter Sunday. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would say today, if I had to pick 3 words, I'm loving. I have this love for people, for everyone. I'm determined. I've always been. So I'll stick to that. And I'm intentional today. There are things that I do with intention today. So yeah, those are the 3 words that I would pick to describe myself right in this moment.
And, you know, part of why I asked that is because I know 30 years ago, that's not where you were. And yeah. And so my next question is, what 3 words would you have used yourself before you began that transformational process? What, you know, say 30 years ago?
I was afraid. And part of that was because of trauma. So I was traumatized. I was afraid. I was kind of scorned, confused. So I know I'm going over 3 words, but
no,
in that's kind of, you know, if I had to look back 30 years ago at the age of 14, I was lost.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of the reason I wanted to say this is because today's, you know, program, we looked at a couple different titles and we came up with Fighting to See the Change You Want to See. And I am thrilled that we get to highlight somebody who has navigated the kind of things that you have dealt with and coped with, because not only are you in a position to give back, but just by doing what you've done, you're a role model. So I wanted to thank you for that. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Let's explore how you got from there to now, from there to here, from then to now, and what do you attribute that full circle to? Yeah. Yeah. So let me just ask that. What was the first step in doing that?
So when you say getting from there to now, I think that.
Yeah, tell your story of when your early story, when you lost your parents.
Okay, so I can do that. And I'll go back even a little further. So, you know, I don't know if you can see it right now, but in some of the pictures that you might see of me, you'll notice that I have this lazy eye. And so when you are young and growing up, kids can be mean. And so, you know, Popeye the Sailor Man, one-eyed Willie, I tell this story all the time. Popeye the Sailor Man was actually a blessing in disguise, right? You know, so if you know Popeye, he's got this one eye and it's closed, and that's kind of how mine was all growing up. And so I thought to myself, you know, Popeye likes to eat spinach, and when Popeye eats spinach, he turns from Popeye to this strong man. And so where it was kind of a blessing in disguise back then, when I thought about it, it was kind of, it hurt. It hurt my inner being and my core. But then as I grew, you know, as I captured Popeye and I saw what Popeye was about, you take that weakness and you turn it into a strength, if you will. And so that's kind of where life began, in that I was, you know, kids made fun of me. I had low self-esteem, no confidence. My father, he loved me dearly. He always called me princess, made me feel like I was beautiful, and he would be murdered when I was 7 years old. I would then be raised by my mom, who was a single mom, who raised myself and my 2 sisters, a younger one and an older one. And my mom was an advocate for her community. So she would send me off to a nursing home to volunteer, and I would be molested there. And so it just seemed like, okay, you know, things went from, you know, I'm this little girl that lacked self-confidence. My father's been murdered, and that's the person that loves me. I go to this nursing home, I'm molested, and then I was about 11 or 12 at that time, and then a couple years later, my mother would die in a car accident. She lived for a week. She had dropped me off at a new school that day and would go off to work. I would then find a month after my mom passed away that I was pregnant with my first child. So it seemed like I couldn't catch a break. You know, that's just how it was. My daughter's father, he was very abusive. So at a young age, you know, I equated the abuse to love. You know, he does these things because he loves me. And so by the time I was 16 years old, I was a single mom to not, you know, I had my daughter. I had another child that was stillborn. So imagine being 16 years old and you carry this life, and at 7 months pregnant, the doctor tells you that the baby's not alive. And so that's hard, you know, and you carry that baby for another week and they induce you and have you deliver that child as though the baby was going to come out living and breathing, you know. And so, you know, I'm going to wrap all of that up in a nutshell to say, you know, 17 years old, my guidance counselor calls me in and he says, hey, Daphney, you're not going to graduate. And so I did as best I could to keep good grades. And I thought to myself, what do you mean I'm not going to graduate? Like, I've got good grades. Have you seen them? That's the one thing that I prided myself in. But you know what? You had to go to school and you had to be there as well. And so I had missed too many days of school. And he says, you know, and I said, well, he says, you can go to summer school. I said, well, I'm not going to graduate with my friends, you know. And he says, I said, so I'm not going to do that. And he says, well, your mom would roll over in her grave if I didn't make you walk up the street and at least take the GED test. So I did. I go up there, I pass it with flying colors. The one thing that I will own is that I've been a bright girl. And so I thank God for Dr. Coley that he made me do that. And so I'll fast forward, you know, this is at 17. By the time I was 22 years old, I had my daughter. I had given birth to another child at 19 years old. So I had the stillborn child, then I got pregnant again. And then at 22 years old, I've got these two children. I've got a baby that I'm carrying in my stomach, another son, and I'm living in this apartment that's right down the street from social services. And I remember these roaches crawling around my house. I remember I didn't have a job. I remember looking at these two kids of mine thinking, how am I going to feed these kids? I had no clue. I remember looking up and to my parents and saying, I'm sorry. What have I done? You know, what have I done? And I've looked at my children and, you know, how am I going to teach them a better way or give them better? Because if anyone on here is a mom, you want better for your children than you want for yourself. And in that moment, that was kind of my aha moment in that, how do I turn this around? You know, how do I take this situation that I've placed myself into and how do I begin to turn it around for my children? And so from that point on, it was kind of looking myself in the mirror and getting rid of the excuses, you know, losing, you know, being bullied as a child.
Let me interrupt you there for a second.
Yes,
so
please do.
When you say looking yourself in the mirror, that honest self-evaluation, what did you need to change? What excuses were you relying on up to that point?
I guess the excuse was, you know, I have no parents. I have no education. You know, so those were all the excuses that I was holding on to that was allowing me to stay in that space. But it was saying, okay, so what, right? How do you push past those things to become a better version of who you need to be and who these children need to be so that they, you know, they do have a parent. They do, you know, they do have the things that you didn't. So they're looking to you to guide them to be better.
So Daphney, I remember the first time I met you, you said that for you, it was key. Now you might not remember saying this to me, but you said it was key to you to see your obstacles not as stumbling blocks, but as building blocks. I don't know if you
Absolutely.
Yeah, you said obstacles. I had to change my mindset and see those obstacles as building blocks instead of stumbling blocks. So what did you do? What were some clear things? Who did you talk to, or how did you navigate that mindset switch?
Absolutely. So I think that I'm a studier. I watch people. And so at the time, I was still battling shame. I was ashamed of myself. And I often felt that people were not, as opposed to lending a helping hand, saying, how do I help this girl? They were pointing a shameful finger. And so it was battling the shame and how do I watch people. So I might see a woman in the grocery store interacting with her children and think, she's a great mom. How do I adopt that quality, right? And so it was almost like I was watching people. I would get myself a good job. I would, attach myself to people that were doing well in the workforce. My kids were getting involved in different sporting activities, and so I would see coaches and things of that nature. And so I tell this story all the time. I started to take ingredients from different people that had promising life outlook, and I would put them in a bowl, and I would say, boom, you go be her today. Because the one thing you get to do is you get to be whoever you want to be. So you go be her today. And as I was going through life, other people that possess these positive qualities that I thought that I wanted to possess, I would just grab them and I would take them and put them back in that bowl, and every now and again reinvent myself. And so it was almost, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so that's your recipe. Take a little of this, take a little of that, put it in and own it.
Absolutely.
Did you actually talk to these people that you saw and say, what are you doing? Or were you just studying them?
So initially, no, I didn't. I was just studying because I was afraid. There was that fear and that confusion that, okay, they're going to think that I'm just, I'm nuts. But over time, as my confidence boosted, over time, then yes, I would have conversations, and I might not tell them, hey, I'm studying you, I want to be like you, but it would be, you almost, you've got to, somebody once told me, you've got to change people, places, and things, right? And so you've got to surround yourself with the people that you aspire to be like, that can pull you up from where you are. And so I might not ask them the questions, but then I would begin to be bold and have conversations. And then I would maybe not ask questions as though I was seeking to be more like them, but I would kind of maneuver my questions in a different way so that I could get the things that I needed to make me better.
So you're this incredibly successful businesswoman. You have your own company. In fact, you were recently celebrated by Enterprising Women's Magazine as a champion in 2020, the list of the world top women entrepreneurs. Congratulations. So at 22, you're there, and now here you are with your own company. How many employees?
15.
15 employees, just killing it. Can you tell us how you got from a mom with kids trying to get into the workforce and creating your own company? Did you go back to school? Tell us the steps you took.
So no, I didn't go back to school. I'm a workhorse. So I got into the workforce, and I kind of, I got into the benefits industry, and I was always vying to be better. And so I would kind of say, you know what, this is a position I want. Let me study it. Let me watch it. Now, I will say I did attempt to go back to school, and it was difficult. It's difficult to navigate being a single mom to 3 children and to be in school, being in 2 places at one time. And so I thought, I'm better suited being the studious person that I am. So I would put my eye on a prize, and I would say, I want a managerial position. So I'm going to study that manager. I'm going to learn all of these positions, and then I was an intrapreneur before I became an entrepreneur. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, to be honest. That wasn't my thing. It actually just kind of, when I moved to North Carolina from Maryland back in 2014, in 2015, the company that I used to work for, they started licensing their technology, and someone reached out and said, hey, when you worked here, you were really good. They don't allow you, they don't have it internally anymore. You've got to build things yourself. And so can you help me? So I thought, okay, I took a pay cut, when I left that company. I'll help you. I could use the extra money. And so I remember being called up at my youngest son's track meet, helping this gentleman. His name's Andrew Jennings. He's from a company called Prepare Benefits. And that's kind of how I got my start. And I said, okay, well, I can do this part-time in the evenings. I did have a job in the daytime. And at some point, I decided, okay, well, let me see what this looks like if I were to venture out on my own. The job that I did have, I didn't particularly, it wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just I didn't like how I was treated. And I had the opportunity to change that for myself. So I would say March, I started consulting. by June, I decided this is what I was going to do. And so this gentleman takes me to a conference to meet other clients. And I get there, and we're in the cocktail hour. And I remember being there and feeling overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't belong, like I bit off more than I could chew. So I'm in this cocktail hour, and I'm looking around, and I go back to my room, and I call my sister, and I'm bawling my eyes out. I said, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And she says, Daphney, you get out there and you go be the boss that you are. And I had a dinner scheduled at like 7 that evening. And I said, okay. So I went back out, I went to dinner, and it was the guy that I was doing consulting work for. And it was another gentleman that owned his own company. And so we went out for sushi, which I hate, by the way. And they've got their staff. So they're these businessmen, and they set me at the head of the table. One's here, and they've got their teams lining the table, and I'm like, oh man, you know. So I was just emotional in my room, crying to my sister. I hate sushi. I'm trying to swallow it whole, concentrate on, you know, fitting in with these chopsticks.
Try not to throw up.
Exactly.
Right.
So they're having this conversation, and they ask a question, and they both turned to me, and it was about the technology. And so I'm like, oh man, they're talking to me, you know. And so I gathered myself, and I asked, could you repeat the question? And they did. And so before you know it, like, I know my industry, and I began to talk. And in that moment, the whole table got quiet, and everybody was looking at me. And in that moment, I thought, you got this, kid. You can do this. You've captivated the table. And so it gave me the confidence that I needed to gain another client. So then in July, I quit my job. And in August, I set up in my house, in my kitchen, seeking to just make enough money to take care of me and my younger son. My older son was in college at the time, and my daughter was, you know, had graduated, and she was living on her own. And so I kind of set up that way. I didn't set up to make it a business, if you will.
Well, so that's that is so amazing that all those people were focused on you, and they asked you the question where you were the master, you were the expert on that. So that's great. I was wondering, Daphney, I wanted to check in with Heba and Lena and see if they have a question about this. I have tons more questions, but I wanted to check in with them.
Yeah, actually, thank you so much just for sharing your story. I want to know, so when you started the business, you said you started at your kitchen table. Was it was it difficult for you to figure out the actual logistics of running the business? Like, was that intimidating? How did you handle that? Where did you start?
So that's a great question. So yeah, figuring out the logistics, it was difficult. You know, initially it was just me. And so it took me, you know, logistically, when it was just me, it was okay. Maybe 2 months in, things started to get busy. So I had to hire an employee. That employee came to my kitchen and worked with me. As I, you know, went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 6, you know, it's looking at, okay, do I make these contract employees 1099, or do I bring them on as full-time W-2 employees? And in doing that, you know, there's a tax obligation from an employer perspective. So figuring out all of those logistics, how do you do payroll, things of that nature. Luckily for me, where I lacked that education, my younger sister, she's got her master's. So she was able to jump in and to guide me, you know, in the areas where I lacked that expertise.
Okay. Yeah, because that's I find what's most intimidating for me is trying to figure out, I'm just starting a business, and it's just like trying to figure out certain things. I'm wondering if I'll be able to learn as I go along, or if it's like something that is just like, I'm going to have to hire somebody to, I guess you're only as good as who you hire, right? So I'm going to have to hire somebody along the way, but it's just scary because I feel like you have to learn so much, even though you do hire people to help you along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I will say is I don't know what resources that you have available. I know here there's a small business training and development center. You know, they've got them all over that will jump in and that will help you. I can be a resource for you because I've had to learn along the way. I'll say my first employees were 1099 contract employees because as an employer, when you take on that tax liability, it's an additional expense, right? And so when you're a small business, you've got, you know, depending on the industry that you're in, you know, when you look at these expenses, you want to minimize what those expenses are, if you will. But then as you grow, you know, there's one thing getting from 2 to 5, and then once you have to migrate everyone to those W-2 employees, what kind of benefits do I offer? Can I afford to offer them benefits? You know, it's all of those little things that can cause some issues. But again, having a resource, someone that you can tap into that can guide you along the way. And I can definitely, you know, you can get my contact information. I can help you the best way I know how.
Yeah, I'll put your contact information in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have so many questions for you. And thank you so much for doing this.
No
on a personal level, you've faced a lot of adversity. Do you have a hard time, like, did you in the beginning or up until now, do you ruminate about kind of what's gone on, or how did you figure out a way to let that go so that you could like propel yourself forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I find that I no longer, at some point I did ruminate in those things, but what I've done is I've allowed them to let go, and I would let go of them, and I have learned to be who I am today, right? The girl that I once was, she taught me how to be strong. She taught me how to be tenacious, and I need all of that as a business owner, so I don't lose sight of those qualities that the trials and the adversity taught me. I hold on to those qualities because I need them as a businesswoman, but I no longer hold on to those things because at some point, that's not who I am anymore. I've evolved, and so I get to be who I am today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Lena, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? Okay. Well, Daphney, yeah, so first of all, I wanted to thank Kiva for jumping in there. It's always great to hear you speak off the cuff because you do it so passionately. So here you are, kind of like at the top of the small business world, but you haven't always been there. And I was wondering if you could think back and tell us, what was the hardest part of the journey for you? Was it the emotional? Was it the physical? Was it the trauma before you started, the trauma of having your own business? I mean, they're both, you know, in different ways, very, very demanding and require a lot of you. So what was the hardest part of your journey?
So from a business perspective, the hardest part of the journey is growth. What happens is when you start to grow, it's asking yourself, do I take on everything and you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? Or do I learn to just not take on everything and let some of it go? And so when you, as an entrepreneur, when you get caught up and you see there's a high demand for what I'm offering, you don't want to let any of it go because you're fearful if I let some of it go, these are dollars that I could lose out on. So there were times where I might work all day till 6 or 7 o'clock. You know, you've got to fit in your self-care. So I would leave, go to the gym for an hour, go home, eat something really quick, and I might work all through the night. And before you know it, it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I get 45 minutes of sleep and I am back up and at it again. And so I remember there being times where I would get this pain shooting down, and, you know, I'm only 44 years old, and at that time, you know, I'm going to say that's 2-3 years ago, I'm 41, and I feel like I'm having a stroke. My husband's got to drag me to the emergency room. And so, but that was growth. It was growing my brand and my business and not wanting to let my clients down. Also trying to find the right people that were the right fit for my organization, and you're carrying a lot of weight. And so I think that growth was very difficult, and learning how to let some of that go and put myself first, my family first, and then trusting the people. So growth and trust are 2 areas that, you know, have been kind of difficult.
So you mentioned the importance of self-care as a businesswoman, and I know that's important for all women to remember not to lose themselves in the different roles that they play. But what other strategies, or how important is it to find support and mentors and other people to connect with? How did that play out in your business?
Absolutely. So what I'll say is a couple years ago, I became a member of the Women's Presidents Organization. And so I remember my,
you know,
these are all, it's called WPO. It's called Women's President Organization. And I remember I met with a lady by the name of Carrie Peel, and she owns a company called Mako Documents, and she's kind of the chair here for the Raleigh branch. And I remember, they meet every, one Wednesday out of every month, and it's about a 3-hour meeting, and you go in and you eat, and you're sitting at this table with a bunch of women entrepreneurs that, everybody looks different, but everybody's going through the same thing, dealing with growth, dealing with just different things. And so what I'll say is that was one of the best things that I ever did, because I got to my first meeting, and number one, it was like, I didn't even have time to go to this meeting, so I didn't want to go, but I forced myself to go. And so my very first meeting, it felt so good. So you start the meeting off, and everybody gives a one word. How do you feel right now? Right now, sitting here. And then before you leave, you do that same thing. How do you feel? And you kind of talk about the different challenges that you're facing in your business. And it's good to know you're not alone. And where I'm at in business, someone might have already overcome that. So they're able to give me tools and resources to overcome that obstacle, and vice versa. Maybe someone else, like you, Heba, right? What I'm hearing from you is you're just getting started, and there are certain things that you don't know. So it was very good to be able to sit around that table with women in different stages. And again, women, they understand our emotions, our feelings, being a wife, being a mom, being a business owner, being a sister, being a friend, so I think that it is very important to surround yourself with a support system that can understand, and you've got different support systems for different things,
So I hope that when people watch this and come back and review it, that they hear the importance of self-care. I took some notes here: self-care, support from others, willingness to reach out, to look your fear in the face, network, and make sure you're not feeling alone, that there's other people who understand what you're going through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah, super important. So let's see. I'm guessing that you've learned a great deal about yourself and the world as you faced your fears and navigated these hurdles. What is the single most important lesson that you've learned? What if you could only tell Heba and Lena one bit of advice, what would it be?
Go with your gut. Trust your gut. It doesn't steer you wrong. Yeah, trust your gut. And I don't know, it's Easter, so I'll also say trust your gut and trust. I don't know what spiritual attachments you have, but I would trust that as well, because people will fail you depending on who you follow spiritually. I follow God, and He will not. And so I trust my gut, and in the days that I struggle with that, I lean on the Lord. And so that, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, that's great. Daphney, how important is positive thinking? We talked earlier about you changing your mindset. How important is that in successfully navigating and establishing your own business? And in particular, how important is that as you deal with employees of an ever-growing company? Absolutely.
So you always have to think of the good. You've got to find the good in everyone. You've got to find the good in yourself. I may start a day and I may walk out the door and think, okay, today's going to be a great day. And then when I first walk into the office, something hits me the wrong way and it rubs me a different way. I put my stuff down and I walk back out and I say, start over. We're not going to.
You literally walk out?
I literally walk out. And I tell people, like, I gotta go out and I gotta start over, because as a business owner, when I walk into the office, I'm the leader, right? And so when I lead, a lot of people, they follow that. So if I start off the day on the sore note, then who else am I rubbing that onto? Who else am I giving that negative energy? So it's always good to stay in a positive light. And I don't have a problem. Like, I have an open door policy, but when I'm going to take myself there, I close the door. So I close the door and I don't allow anyone else to see that. And then I open it back up when I've cheered myself on and gotten myself back to that positive thinking. There's a book, and I'm looking over on it's called Hung by the Tongue. Life and death lies in the power of your own tongue. And so you've got to speak life and you've got to speak positivity all the time. Even when someone's trying to pull you back down, you've got to be willing to look at that, put the frown upside down and look at it as positive. And also in that, though, you also have to allow yourself to, some people think of like whenever you get stressed out and you've got everything coming at you, and maybe you've got that day where you just want to just cry, right? Some people look at that as a negative thing. It's not. There's power in those tears. There's positivity in those tears. And so you've also got to give yourself that. You've got to give yourself that day or that 15 minutes. I do it all the time. I give myself 3 minutes sometimes. And I'm like, and then I get it together.
I used to give my kids 3 minutes in the corner and tell them to get their act together. So now I get to do that for myself because Daphney said so. That's great. Daphney, speaking of not only empowering yourself, but empowering others, could you speak to us a little bit about Women Who Uplift and what Uplift stands for? And in case the others don't know, this is a nonprofit that Daphney started to share her compassion and her desire to support other women and girls and help them reach their goals. So tell us a little bit about Women Who Uplift.
Yeah, so Women Who Uplift, it's really all about just uplifting and empowering. And I don't even want to just say women, just your community, helping someone be a better version of themselves and being unapologetic and intentional about it on purpose. What I'll tell you is, so I have a lady that I went to go see at Massage Envy, and I didn't even know this lady. She was just, giving, my self-care, she was giving me my massage, and she started to talk to me about wanting to open up her own business. And intentionally, her name's Hannah, intentionally, I cheered her. I think that you should. And if you need anything along the way, let me know and I will help you. I didn't know this girl from, just from going in and getting a massage. Here we are years later. She's got Vital Balance. She texted me just a couple of weeks ago when I had the feature in Sack magazine, and she said, you know what? I want to thank you. It's because of you that I was strong enough to go out on my own. And that's kind of what Women Who Uplift is all about. It might not even be from an entrepreneurial perspective, but I look back at the girl that I once was, and I had to get from being her to get to being who I am today. And even at 44 years old, an entrepreneur, I've got to be able to get from 44 to 54, right? How do I do that? I need to attach myself to someone that can help me to get there. And that's kind of what Women Who Uplift is all about, is just kind of looking back and giving a helping hand and meeting a mentee where they are, right? Meeting them where they are, understanding where they want to be, and identifying tools and resources to help them to get there. And then by way of doing that, when they get there, they're able to look back and give back to the next woman and the next woman. Because as women, we're strong, right? You, Heba, are strong. You, Lena, you are strong. You, Bernadette, you're very strong. But when we get together and we link arms and we are intentional about helping one another, we become that much stronger.
Right. So just so you know, I did put Women Who Uplift in the chat, and I actually put the blog part of that in there and the events, because you have some very exciting events coming up, and I want people to be able to register for them if they're interested. But could you tell us about some of them? And some of these might be helpful for our participants today.
Absolutely. So just some upcoming events. I'll say we just finished out the month of March, so it's Women's History Month, and so we've just spent a month where people have nominated phenomenal women for service awards, and so we sent each of those women a box with, just little things, a notebook, a pen. You've got to be able to channel your inner thoughts and your dreams and your goals. Lotions, gift cards to go out and do something nice for yourself, just for kind of uplifting in the community. April, we have our workforce readiness at the end of the month, so we're going to be doing that right in Hagerstown, which is my hometown. I'm going to do an employee benefits and technology program, and just teaching people how to fuse those two things together. Anyone registered in that program, we are going to be working with some benefits brokers and some, companies in the employee benefits technology space to help those people to gain employment. We're coming out of COVID right now, and I think I saw in the news the unemployment rate is getting better, but there are some people that need to be able to get back into the workforce. There's a CPR and first aid certification that weekend and some resume writing. And I think that later on this year, we'll also be doing, it's called Beyond High School. We want to reach out to not only women, but our youth, just kind of a program that is designed to allow our youth to think beyond high school, because there's something beyond that. What is it?
Right.
Am I going into the workforce? Am I going into college? Am I, going to go into the military, and help them to understand those things? And then towards the later part of this year, we'll be doing some entrepreneurial workshops, just kind of to get almost like my WPO group, in that it's getting, with the WPO group, you've got to grow, over $1 million, right? Well, I started at zero. There's somebody else that started at zero. So it's kind of taking that same thing and bringing it to smaller groups to kind of put women together that are, going through that entrepreneurial grind, and kind of allowing us to kind of have a round table. What is it that you're dealing with? What is it that you're dealing with? And linking each other up so that we can make each other better. And that's kind of where we're at for 2021. And then in 2022, we've got a couple conferences, one here in North Carolina, one in Maryland. The one in North Carolina will be March 2022, and in Maryland will be October 2022. So I've got a busy year.
You do have a busy year, and you're doing this all on top of your full-time job with your 15 employees. So yeah,
exactly.
and your family. So that's a lot, but I happen to know that you're up to it. I know that for sure. Daphney, one of the things that I really love about you is your fighting spirit. And I am pretty sure that our guests don't know that you also box, and that has become an analogy for your life. Could you talk about boxing in general, and then how you got into it, and maybe some of the competitions you competed in?
Absolutely. So boxing in general, okay, I'll reverse back to self-care. I got into it trying to take care of myself. You gotta work out. It helps you with some pent up aggression. But when I walked into my first, boxing, it was a class, as the coach is telling you to bob and weave and stick and move and all these things that you have to do, it reminded me very much of the fight of my life, right? All through life, you've got to be on the offense, you've got to be on the defense. You've got someone coming at you, trying to jab you in the face to knock you out, and sometimes you get knocked out, right? But you got to get up, and you got to get back in the ring of life, because you don't, if you stay down, that's where you're going to be, down. You've got to pick yourself back up, and you've got to get into the ring of life, back into that ring. And so as I was taking the class and, trying to, again, taking care of myself, I thought to myself, you know what? I want to get in a ring and I want to fight, because guess what? I also am a firm believer that you can be anything you want to be when you grow up. And me growing up is not just me growing up from a 16-year-old to a 17-year-old. I'm 44 today. I got to grow up to be 44 and one more day tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. So I decided I'm going to train, and I'm going to get in the ring, and I'm going to box, because I want to show people that you're never too old to do anything that you want to do. You can be anything that you want to be when you grow up. And then it was just, again, it was a great analogy for the fight of my life, in that I've had to bob, weave, get on the offense, get on the defense. I've taken some knockdowns, some wins, some losses, and some draws, which is where you started at, Bernadette. But I keep getting up to another day. So I did all that. I did box the fight. I won my first fight in 30 seconds, TKO. And my second fight, it was a split decision to the opponent, but it was okay. I got in the ring, I got through all the rounds, I didn't give up, and I met the goal. The goal going into that weekend was win one, get to championship Sunday. I did it, and I did want a belt, though. I'll be very honest. I wanted the belt. I was happy with my medal, though.
Darn it. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you'll just do it some other time.
Well, I will.
Yeah. So Daphney, I wanted to ask this just because a lot of women, when I was asking them what questions they would ask you, they wanted to know how you navigate, since we're using that term, navigate your professional life with the nonprofit and your business with your personal life and your family. Does your family support that, or does it make you feel more pulled in different directions?
You know, it's been a journey. I would say initially I did feel like I was pulled in a bunch of different directions, but my family has been very supportive in that. And what I've learned to do is you've got to put family first. Now, I didn't always put my family first because you get caught up in the growth part, right? You get caught up in the growth. There are times where your family does fall by the wayside, but I think that where I'm at now, and one of the things that I help my employees and my clients to understand is that I want to be a partner for you. I want us to do the best job that we can. However, I set the precedent that family is important. You know, and as a partner, if you know, as a client, you're my partner. And if you're a partner, you understand that. And so working all night long and working on the weekends, we don't do that anymore. That's time for family. I also kind of set myself a regimen. It's good to keep a calendar of the things that you're going to do. I carve out time. This is the time for my nonprofit, and I don't let things get in the way of that. This is the time for my business, and I don't let things get in the way of that. And this is the time for my family. It's also holding people accountable. So my employees, there would be times where if they didn't do what they needed to do, then I got pulled back in. I got to a point where someone told me, hire slow and fire fast. I wasn't doing it that way. I have a heart, right? So I wouldn't let someone go because I would feel bad. But what I came to realize is that I don't ask people to take away from their family, so they shouldn't take away from mine. And if I hire you to do a job, you should do it. So then that way you have time for your family and I have a time for mine. So you've got to learn how to create those lines and then stick to them. Right,
right. Well, I have a couple pictures here that I would like to screen share of you. To me, I'll say, I think the first one is like you. I'm just imagining that's you at home. And the next one is you outside the boxing ring, which is just like, you look like such a badass. And another one is you doing your volunteer work. And then a picture of your Hagerstown, I guess, board of directors for your nonprofit. So let me see if I can screen share these. Let's see. Yeah. Share this. Hold on. Yeah, so yeah, can everybody see that? I just love this picture of you, Daphney. It to me is just a beautiful photo of a woman who's comfortable in her own skin. And then tell us a little bit about this photo and where and when it was taken.
So I just want to make sure I see the black in the boxing ring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was taken in Raleigh, in the boxing gym, Jawbreakers Boxing, and it was actually, so just recently, SAS Magazine, based out of Frederick, they did an article on me called Woman to Watch, and so that was kind of, part of the photo shoot that shows, I can get in, I can get in the ring, and I can get in the ring in my all dress, but I can also get in the ring and I can look a little different. I can roll up my sleeves and be ready to work. So it just kind of speaks to, it speaks to kind of who I am in general. I come for a fight, and it doesn't matter where I have the heels on or whether I don't.
Right. I love that. I think it's such a great picture. And tell us about this photo.
So this was our Christmas drive. I combined it with my company and my nonprofit. So a lot of the people that you see there are employees of mine, and they all get behind the vision of my nonprofit, which is a wonderful thing. My employees are very much my family. And so we, went out and we went shopping together as a team. People donated gifts and money so that we could kind of give to those less fortunate in the community at Christmas time. And so that was kind of our, our Christmas drive last year.
Okay, and this picture here.
So that picture there is just the Maryland committee for the Uplift conference, the Uplift Empowerment Conference. That, it was scheduled for 2020. In Maryland, they said 2020 was the year of the woman. Well, 2020, it was definitely the year of the woman, but we had to kind of stay inside due to COVID. And so that picture was leading up to that because we were going to do our first conference then, but we've kind of pushed that out to 2022. And that's kind of a team of individuals that are kind of helping to bring that vision to light.
Yes, so Prime Time for Women bought 1,500 little bracelets that say 2020 Year of the Woman and Prime Time for Women on the back. Can I use those in 2021 or 2022?
Yeah, we'll call it a do-over, yeah.
That is a lot of bracelets to try to get rid of with the wrong year on it, I got to tell you that. Okay.
Well, it's still the Year of the Woman, though. We had to endure a lot being inside during,
that's
for
right,
a whole
that's
year.
right, that's right. Well, Daphney, it's been an hour into our interview, and now's the time where typically I invite other people to ask their questions, or you can put questions to our guest if you want. So this is your chance to take control and be that fighter or direct the traffic.
Absolutely. So Hiba, I would love to ask you a little bit more about your business, what it is. Talk to me about what it is and, how long you've been doing it, what your passion is. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So actually, I've been in corporate events for over 9 years now. I'm based in Toronto, so most of the clients that I work with were actually international clients that would come to Toronto. So that industry is pretty much crushed for now. Which is actually turned out to be a great thing because it led me to start studying my passion when everything just kind of started. And now I'm a certified clinical hypnotist. And what I'm doing, yeah, it's different. It's interesting. What I'm doing with my company is I'm going to be offering virtual appointments as well as in person. But I'm focusing really on people with anxiety, stress management, students, youth especially, just making sure that they have the self-confidence they need, especially when it comes to young women. I think that a lot of times, I can speak for myself and a lot of women that I've met, they are very afraid to kind of toot their own horn, or they feel like they're not good enough. There's always something kind of holding them back. They're very hard on themselves. So I want to create a program. I'm in the process actually of creating a program to just really instill that confidence in them. And then another program I'm really, really proud of is I'm working with a psychotherapist to create a program for women who've been in abusive relationships. And so I've created different kinds of hypnosis sessions that will address some subconscious beliefs that have kind of been collected over, whether it be their childhood or their relationship, to kind of help them move forward in their lives and get unstuck. So that's what I'm working on right now. And the company is called Self Mastery Inc. And I just actually got it incorporated last week. And
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Now I just feel overwhelmed. I know, Daphney, you were saying how you try to do everything at once because you're scared, and that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm scared. So I'm I have to get the website done, and then I have to do the marketing, and then I have to, and even just the social media on its own is like a beast. So I'm getting really overwhelmed and really scared. But also really, really excited seeing it kind of all come together.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on right now.
I wanted to say one thing to you, Hiba. I attended a women's conference, and one of the things that was really interesting at this conference was how when men are talking about themselves. They're sharing their skill sets. They're talking about what they're good at. They're talking about their passions. And women tend to not do that because they don't want to be perceived as bragging. And I just think it's really time that women step away from that and say, you get to sell yourself. You're worth it. You're good at it. And at that conference, there's just 4 little words that they had us practice saying. And it was crazy because there was like 800 women at this conference. And for a half hour, we walked around and we said to different women, I'm good at connecting people. I have a skill of technology. I'm a master at technology. I'm really good at social media. I know how to do billing. And no matter what anybody said, the only 4 words you could say back was, I hear you and I'm so proud of you. And then they would say back to you, are you good at technology? And you would say, yes, I am. Thank you. It's true. And so just this idea, this practice of saying, yes, thank you, it's true. And you're not bragging, but you're owning your skill sets. I would tell you that I think that when you do your hypnosis with these women who are stuck in that mindset, I hope that they learn to say, thank you, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bernadette. You're absolutely right. I think as women, we tend to minimize what we do, as well as kind of apologize. We're always apologizing. I don't know why, but you know, it's kind of we're always apologizing for taking up space, and we're always minimizing our accomplishments. And yeah, it's absolutely. I think you should say, you know, Daphney is amazing. She should open up with, "Hey, I'm amazing. I overcame a lot." No,
I said that for her because she is.
Yeah, you should. That's how you should just open up everything. Hi, I'm Daphney. I'm amazing. I overcame this, and this, and you know, I've done more than most, you know, people, let alone men, kind of thing. You know, so I think that's.
And the other thing, Daphney, I think that Heba makes a really good point, because what you've accomplished is quite amazing. But for anybody, but given what the trauma and the hardships you dealt with as a young girl and as a teen, it's incredibly inspiring. And so I do think at your next presentation, you could start off with, I'm totally inspiring, let alone amazing.
Yeah, I'm inspired, strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. It's yeah, I think we need to celebrate ourselves more, because men have no problem doing it, right?
Yeah, so the prime time for Women's Mission is celebrate, connect, and empower women from diverse backgrounds as they explore new possibilities in the second half of life. And one of the things that is so true, and it's been proven time and time with medical research, is that women who have strong social connections are stronger, healthier, happier. They have better, they live 7 years longer than women who don't have those kind of connections. They have less diabetes, depression, dementia. So the connection that we bring is real. And the other thing is that this World Health Organization says that social connections have play a greater role in longevity than diet and exercise combined. So, you know, when I think about Prime Time for Women's Mission, bringing women together, bringing Daphney to Heba, you know, and hopefully tons of other women who watch this, they will know that in reaching out, that they're not only helping themselves, but that connection helps the women that they interact with as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's hard to make connections. I mean, in general, nowadays more so, but in general, especially when you haven't been in a field. And Daphney, you were saying when you first started out that you were kind of just trying to mimic people, and that's kind of how you built yourself up before you were able to actually, I guess, interact with them and have those connections. And that's amazing. And that's where I feel I am right now. It's like I don't have the connections yet. So, I mean, some of my, you know, I just added you to the list, Daphney, but some of my people are people I've never met. So I've got, you know, Louise Hay is high on the list, and some other people. But yeah, I mean, the connections are are so important. Definitely.
Yeah, they are definitely important. And, you know, any way that I can help you or connect you, you know, reach out. I will do whatever I can. You know, I'll do whatever I can. But they are important.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Daphne, I'm going to put the link to the SAS magazine in our chat, and so that people can check that out. It's a great article, and I just want to say congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me today, Bernadette.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. It's what I'm good at, highlighting amazing women. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll put this up. This interview will be up on our website, and you can go back and revisit, and then if you haven't, and other people can see it in the future. So thanks so much for being with us.